My child, you thought you'd scroll past this. You thought this was just another message, another moment, another thing to glance at and forget. But something made you stop. Not curiosity alone, something deeper. And that pause, that small decision to stay even for a second longer, wasn't random. I need you to understand that before anything else settles in your mind. This moment found you, not because you were searching for it, but because you were ready for it, without even knowing it. I'm not here to hype you up, to shock you, to entertain you for 15 minutes and leave you unchanged. I'm here because something in your life is shifting, and you felt it before you clicked, before you stopped, before you even realized you were paying attention. Most people will never experience what you're about to experience, not because they're not worthy, but because they never stop moving long enough to hear what's waiting for them. They stay distracted, they stay busy, they stay surface level, and they miss the quiet door that opens only once. You didn't miss it. You're here, and that alone tells me more about where you are than you might realize. There's something I need you to feel right now. Not think about, not analyze, feel. You've been carrying a question you haven't fully named yet. It's not loud. It doesn't scream at you in the middle of the day. But it's there. In the quiet moments, in the space between tasks, in the seconds before you fall asleep. The question sounds like this. Is this it? Is this all there is? Not in despair, not in defeat. Just quietly wondering if there's more beneath the routine you've built, the roles you play, the life that looks fine from the outside but feels incomplete on the inside. That question isn't weakness. It's your heart remembering what it was made for. And the fact that you're feeling it now in this moment means something is ready to shift. I'm going to be honest with you. What I'm about to share won't blow your mind. It won't give you 10 steps to success or 5 secrets to happiness. It's quieter than that and more powerful. Because what changes everything isn't information, it's recognition. The moment you recognize who you actually are beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, beneath the labels you've been carrying, everything starts to realign. Not instantly, not magically, but truly. You weren't supposed to find this yesterday. You weren't supposed to hear this last week, last month, or even last year. Because timing isn't random in your life, even when it feels that way. Every delay you experienced, every closed door, every moment you thought you were falling behind, it was shaping something in you, preparing you for this. Not because you needed to be perfect, but because you needed to be open. And openness doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from being tired of pretending you do. You've reached that place. You may not have named it yet, but your heart knows. You're done with surface answers. You're done with distractions that numb but never heal. You're done with noise that fills the silence but never speaks truth. That exhaustion, that holy tiredness, it's not the end of something. It's the beginning. Here's what most people don't understand about divine timing. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks and signs. It's gentle, almost invisible. It feels like a settling, a quiet click. A sense that something just aligned without you forcing it. That's what you're feeling right now, even if you can't name it. The restlessness you've carried is starting to make sense. The questions you've been afraid to ask out loud are beginning to find answers. Not in words, but in understanding. Understanding that you were never as lost as you believed. Never as behind as you feared. Never as broken as the world tried to convince you. You were just unfinished. And unfinished doesn't mean unworthy. It means still becoming. There were moments in your past when something like this crossed your path, and you moved on without a second thought. You weren't ready then. Your heart was too guarded, too tired, too full of noise to pause long enough to listen. And that's okay, because now you are. The difference between then and now isn't that you became stronger. It's that you became more honest. Honest about the emptiness that success didn't fill. Honest about the loneliness that company didn't cure. Honest about the ache that distraction couldn't numb. That honesty is what opens doors. Not perfection, not performance, just honesty. I want you to understand something that might feel uncomfortable at first. You are not here by accident, but you are here alone. Not because others aren't loved, not because they aren't chosen, but because most people never stop long enough to listen. They feel the nudge and silence it immediately. They sense something important and replace it with distraction. They recognize the call and delay it until it fades. You didn't do that. You stayed. That doesn't make you better than anyone else. It makes you ready. And readiness is rare, not because it's hard, but because it requires something most people avoid: stillness. Stillness feels uncomfortable when truth is waiting underneath. But you chose it anyway. That choice, that small willingness to pause, changes everything. Here's the part I need you to hear carefully. What you've been waiting for has been waiting for you, not as a reward, not as something you earn, but as something that could only be released when you were ready to hold it without it breaking you. Some blessings collapse under the weight of unprepared hearts. Some answers overwhelm minds that haven't been softened by waiting. The delay you experienced wasn't denial. It was protection. I wasn't withholding. I was guarding what was meant for you until the moment you could receive it without letting it define you, control you, or become your new identity. Because here's the truth most people miss. Blessings aren't just gifts. They're responsibilities. And if your sense of self isn't grounded in something deeper than what you receive will eventually own you. That's why the waiting mattered. Not to test your faith, but to establish your foundation. You've been living beneath your true awareness, surviving instead of thriving, reacting instead of responding, measuring yourself by what you've accomplished instead of recognizing the value you carry simply by existing. And somewhere along the way, you started believing the lie that your worth was tied to your productivity, your success, your ability to hold everything together. It's not. Your value exists because you exist. Because you were formed with intention, with purpose, with a design that doesn't require you to prove anything to be real. That understanding, that deep, quiet recognition, changes everything. Not loudly, not immediately, but steadily. You stop chasing approval. You stop measuring yourself by comparison. You stop believing that delay means failure. You start living from truth instead of striving for worth. And that shift, that internal realignment, is what you've been longing for without knowing how to name it. This moment isn't the end of struggle. It's the beginning of understanding. Understanding why certain things felt heavy. Understanding why some paths never brought peace. Understanding why your heart has felt restless, even when life looked fine on the outside. The surprise I have for you isn't information. It's revelation. Revelation that you are not who your fear told you that you were. You are not defined by the delays, the confusion, the moments you felt lost. Those things shaped your journey, but they are not your name. You've been living beneath what's true, and it's time to rise. Not through effort, not through striving, but through recognition. Let this settle in you now. Don't rush to define it. Don't try to turn it into a task. Just let it be. Let the truth that you are closer than you realize sink into the places that have felt distant. Let the understanding that you were never forgotten reach the parts of you that felt overlooked. Let the awareness that this moment was prepared specifically for you quiet the voice that says you're too late, too behind, too broken. You're not. You're right on time. And what's waiting for you isn't far off in some distant future. It's beginning now, quietly, deeply, truly. You opened this for a reason. And that reason is unfolding in you right now, in this very moment. Not as pressure, not as urgency, but as invitation. An invitation to step into the life you were always meant to live. Not someday, not when you're ready, not when everything is perfect, but now, starting here, starting today, with this one moment of recognition that changes everything that follows. You are seen, you are known, you are right where you need to be, and what comes next will prove it. Stay with me for a moment longer, because what I'm about to tell you will complete what we've started here. You felt the shift, that quiet recognition settling in your chest. But there's more. Not because what I've already said isn't enough, but because your heart is ready to go deeper. And depth is where real transformation takes root. You know what most people do at this point? They feel the weight of truth and they immediately try to turn it into action. They ask, what do I do now? What's the next step? How do I make this work? And I understand that instinct. But here's what I need you to hear. This isn't about doing. Not yet. This is about becoming. Becoming takes time. It doesn't rush. It doesn't force. It unfolds naturally when you stop trying to control the process and start trusting the transformation happening beneath the surface. You've spent so much of your life performing, proving, pushing yourself to be enough. And it's exhausted you. Not physically alone, but spiritually, emotionally, in the deepest parts of who you are. You've been running a race that has no finish line, chasing a version of success that keeps moving further away the closer you think you're getting. And now, in this moment, you're being given permission to stop running, to breathe, to simply be. Here's what I want you to understand about this season you're entering. It's not going to look like you expected, and they'll ask what changed. And you won't quite know how to explain it, because it didn't happen in a moment. It happened in 1,000 small surrenders, 1,000 quiet realizations, 1,000 times you chose to stay present instead of running back to distraction. That's the beauty of this. You don't have to force it, you just have to allow it. I know you've been afraid. Afraid that if you slow down, you'll fall behind. Afraid that if you stop striving, you'll lose momentum. Afraid that if you let go of control, everything will fall apart. But what if I told you the opposite is true? What if the very thing you're afraid of is the very thing that will set you free? Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the false responsibility you've been carrying. The belief that everything depends on you holding it together. It doesn't. You were never meant to carry it all alone. You were never meant to figure it all out by yourself. You were never meant to be the source of your own strength. That's why you felt so tired. Not because you're weak, but because you've been trying to do something you were never designed to do. And here's what happens when you finally release that burden. Space opens up. Space for rest. Space for clarity. Space for the guidance you've been begging for but couldn't hear, because your hands were too full, your mind too loud, your heart too guarded. That space, that sacred, uncomfortable space, is where everything begins to change. Not because you're doing more, but because you're finally open to receive what's already been offered. The answers you've been searching for, the peace you've been chasing, the direction you've been desperate to find. It's all been here, waiting for you to stop long enough to notice. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you right now. I see someone who has fought hard, loved deeply, and carried more than they should have had to. I see someone who has questioned everything, including themselves, but refused to give up even when giving up felt easier. I see someone who has been misunderstood, overlooked, and underestimated, but kept showing up anyway. I see strength that doesn't announce itself, faith that doesn't need constant validation, hope that refuses to die even when circumstances say it should. That's who you are, not who you're trying to become, who you already are. And the moment you start seeing yourself the way I see you, everything shifts. Because you stop trying to earn what's already yours. You stop proving what's already been established. You stop searching for what's already been placed inside you. This is the part where most people stumble. They hear the truth, they feel the shift, and then they immediately start looking for evidence. Show me. Prove it to me. Let me see something change so I know this is real. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith asks you to believe before you see, to trust before it makes sense, to move forward even when the path isn't fully lit. Not because it's testing you, but because it's training you. Training you to walk with confidence that doesn't come from knowing every step ahead, but from trusting the one guiding you through each step as it comes. That training, that refining, that uncomfortable stretching, it's not punishment. It's preparation. Preparation for the life you've been praying for, the breakthrough you've been believing for, the version of yourself you've been becoming without even realizing it. You're not going to leave this moment the same way you entered it. Something has shifted. Maybe you can't name it yet. Maybe it still feels fragile, uncertain, too quiet to trust. But it's there. A seed has been planted. And seeds don't grow overnight, but they do grow, as long as you don't dig them up to check on them every day. As long as you don't doubt them into dormancy. As long as you give them time, space, and the grace to become what they were meant to be. That's your only job right now. Not to force growth, not to manufacture change, just to protect the soil, protect your peace, protect your focus, protect your heart from the voices that will try to convince you this moment didn't matter. Because it did, and what began here will continue. Not because you're perfect, but because you were willing. Willing to stop, willing to listen, willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, there's more for you than what you've settled for. There is, and it's closer than you think. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Don't rush out of this moment trying to make something happen. Don't turn this into another task, another goal, another thing you have to achieve to prove you're on the right path. Just stay here a little longer. Let this truth sink deeper. Let it reach the places that have been numb, the places that stopped hoping, the places that convinced themselves nothing would ever change. Because change is already happening. Not in the loud, obvious ways you've been looking for, but in the quiet, foundational ways that matter most. The way you're breathing right now, a little steadier. The way your shoulders have dropped, just slightly. The way something in your chest feels lighter even if you can't explain why. That's not nothing, that's everything. Because that's where transformation begins. Not in the mind, in the heart. And your heart is finally starting to believe again. Believe that you're not forgotten. Believe that you're not too late. Believe that what's meant for you is already on its way. And it won't pass you by. You were meant to hear this today. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. Today. And now that you have, everything that follows will reflect this moment. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but with understanding, with clarity, with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are exactly where you're supposed to be. This is your time. Not someday, not when everything aligns. Now. And what begins here will carry you further than you can imagine. Trust it, protect it, let it grow. You are not alone in this. You never were, and you never will be.